these so-called breakaway regions and the people who run them, they don't just claim the areas that they currently possess. They claim areas that aren't currently under the power of Kiev. And so what's going to happen here is Russia is going to send in their troops to the areas that those two separatist regions control, but they're going to move in on those areas that Kiev currently controls because they claim those too. And when Kiev fights back, then they're going to say that that violates, that's going to trigger the mutual defense agreement that Putin signed yesterday with this fake new country, and he's going to move in on those areas as well. You want my personal view, and it's been this way for over a month and a half. I think he takes basically the entire east of the country, and that includes, I think he takes Kiev, the capital, or he'll try anyways. I think Ukrainians are going to fight back, but this is going to have an impact on Americans, even though it seems to be really far away. Well, I don't believe the sanctions are going to stop them from doing what their plan is, but I do think there has to be, if you don't pay a price for doing this, he's going to do more of it. If you listen to that speech yesterday, the argument he used for why invading Ukraine, the old Soviet rules, you could make that argument about any of the Baltic states who are now all members of NATO. And many of those Baltic states were actually part of the old Russian Empire, even longer than Ukraine. You could use the same argument to take those. So he's not going to stop with Ukraine if he's allowed. He must pay a big price for it. But I also think we've got to return, for example, to our own domestic energy production as a matter of national security emergency now, because Russia and this disruption that this is going to create is going to increase oil prices, and we're going to feel it at the pump here in America. And that, by the way, will increase the prices on everything, because everything that we buy and sell is transported by something that's burning gas and diesel. Sure, I'll focus on four things. The first, as I said, is the price of oil. The price of oil, the barrel goes up to 110, $115. We're going to feel that at the pump. Okay. The second thing is, these are things people don't think about. Ukraine is one of the world's largest agricultural producers, the fourth largest, I believe, in wheat, fifth largest in corn. That's going to raise global food prices, which eventually impact us. Because when somebody gets cut off of that, now they become our competitors in the global market for food costs. The third is something a lot of people don't think about: neon gas. Ukraine is the world's leading producer of neon gas, which is critical to the production of semiconductors. 90% of the neon gas used to make semiconductors in America, something there's a shortage of already, comes from Ukraine. If that's disrupted or cut off, we're going to really struggle. I remember back in 2014, when that invasion happened, it really increased the prices of semiconductors. You can see now where that's playing out in our economy, and even by the way, our space industry. This could potentially, the Russia piece of it being cut off from Russian pieces. We still depend on Russia for key components of many of our commercial launches. You could begin to see launches this year scrapped, things that are critical to both national security and also to our commercial viability. Well, they should have treated yesterday as a full-scale invasion. I hope that's what they'll do today. Last night, they seemed to indicate that them moving into areas controlled by separatists is just based as public acknowledgement of what already was true. And so I didn't think that was an appropriate response. But I think beyond that, if you look at one of the things that gave Putin the belief that now was the time to act, it's the price of energy around the world, global oil prices. And the decision in the United States to make it harder to do oil and natural gas exploration has contributed to those higher prices, which in turn has empowered him. In an ironic way, that even though this crisis is going to create higher oil prices, that benefits Putin. And it's his leverage. We will see. He believes that the Europeans, who depend on him heavily for their energy sources, oil and natural gas, will not be able to sustain sanctions against him for long because of energy prices. And so it was a big mistake to sort of make it harder to do exploration. We became energy independent in 2018. We need to go back to that. Well, it shouldn't, because a war between the U.S. and Russia is not going to be good for anybody. These are the world's two largest nuclear powers. And that's one of the things, even as we are firm in our response, we have to try everything possible to avoid, because it can escalate very quickly. We're not the world's policemen. We're not sending troops into Ukraine. But our number one priority is our national interest. Our national interest is impacted by what's happening there. And I outlined some of the reasons why. And there are others from a geopolitical perspective. And I would just say this: if COVID taught us anything, it's that something that happens and starts halfway around the world can reach, Main Street America pretty quickly. Obviously, this is not at that scale, but it's important enough to care about it. Well, I mean, look, I think, first of all, pray for your leaders and pray for Ukraine that people make some wise choices. This is a moment of high tension because there is the possibility, the danger of escalation. I think Russia is going to respond with cyber of some level, which in turn would require a response from us. And you fear that escalation could lead to the kind of active combat that you're talking about or mentioned a moment ago, which would be, just incredibly dangerous. This is a very tense and dangerous moment. You have NATO fully mobilized. You have the largest, land army and since World War II, masked by the Russians. They're operating within very close distance proximity of one another. So this is a moment of high tension. It's a moment for some sobriety. We have to respond strong, but we also have to be smart at the same time and avoid unnecessary and needless escalation, because that would become catastrophic.